What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the A24 Archive. This is the segment on my channel where I go through A24's entire filmography from their first film all the way until I get caught up whenever that is. And I'm about 44, 45 films in now. And the film today I was actually really excited to see. First off, because it stars Zoe Kazan, who is an actress I'm a big fan of. I've watched a lot of her work. I think she's incredibly talented. I always enjoy whenever she shows up in a project. And the second reason I was excited to watch this is because it was directed by Bryan Bertino, who has made one of my more modern, recent favorite horror films, The Dark and the Wicked, which I feel like is a horror movie that not a lot of people talk about, but I actually watched it because of my shirt here. Shudder had it streaming, and it immediately became a favorite. It's very in the vein of like an Ari Aster's Hereditary, very slow burn horror, but there's some truly horrifying imagery in it. And knowing that this film today was also a horror movie, I was very excited because in that film, he builds up really great characters, builds up really great relationship dynamics, and I was hopeful for the same type of experience. And the movie I'm going to be talking about today is The Monster. The Monster is directed by Bryan Bertino. A mother and her 10-year-old daughter are trapped in a forest. There is something in this forest, something unlike anything they have heard before, something that lurks in the darkness, and it's coming after them. So, I didn't really know what to expect from this movie. I haven't even seen a trailer for it. I just knew Zoe Kazan was in it and that Bryan Bertino was the director, and I thought this movie was fine. I expected a lot more out of it because of the fact that The Dark and the Wicked is as incredible of a movie as it is. And this wasn't bad by any means, but it's definitely lackluster in comparison to that film. And I'll get into it a little bit more when I tell you about the film. So The Monster is a very simplistic premise, as the description says. It's a mother played by Zoe Kazan and her 10-year-old daughter. They're driving together, I believe, to go see her daughter's father. You can tell Zoe Kazan's character struggles with alcoholism. She's dealing with a lot in her life. She's not really a great mother. There's a lot of flashback sequences early on. The tension between her and her daughter, things that have caused that tension, and they're driving out in the middle of nowhere, and an animal runs in front of their car. They hit it, they get in an accident, both of them are a little bit banged up. They call for a tow truck, and they call for an ambulance. The tow truck arrives, and the animal's body goes missing, and something comes and grabs the tow truck driver. And so they know that there's something in the woods, and the mother and the daughter have to try to find a way to survive. So it's a very simplistic premise. It's a mother and daughter that are trying to survive out in the middle of nowhere. They know that help's not going to come. They have to, in some way, fight off this monster or whatever it may be. And yeah, the film is pretty simple, but it's also trying to be an allegory for the monster that is addiction. And it's very on the nose because of the flashback sequences that you get. And that's one of my problems with this movie, is I feel like it becomes really heavily reliant on those flashback sequences to give you that emotional connection with the characters, to try to give you some level of payoff in the third act. And I'm not upset that it happens. I think there's ways that you can do it, but I think especially in the first act, it becomes so reliant on those sequences to give you something to watch, to pad this out to an hour and a half runtime, because I don't think Bryan Bertino had a lot to work with other than that very simplistic premise. And once things start building up and the monster starts chasing after them, the movie does become pretty anxiety filled. I think there's a really good job building tension in those moments. The practical effects of the actual monster are really cool looking. I think that Bryan Bertino did a really excellent job with his crew bringing that monster to life. The problem is, as far as substance is concerned, other than that allegory for addiction, that what the film is trying to convey very on the nose, like, there really isn't much else to hold on to, and there really isn't enough with the monster to give this film a whole lot of rewatchability factor. It is a very darkly shot movie, so there's some sequences that I found myself even squinting a little bit because of just how dark the cinematography is. And that's not to say that you can't have darker moments of cinematography. You have to have moments where you can at least see the whole scope of everything to keep you there with the characters. The other issue I have with this is I love Zoe Kazan, but her performance early on in the film is kind of hit or miss. There were moments that her line delivery was almost laughable early on in the film. I feel like once we start amping up to the third act, her performance gets better and better. The actress that played her daughter did a good job. Most of the other actors in it were fine, but I just feel like with her carrying the movie, I expected a lot more out of her. And she gives some monologues towards the end that I feel like are really good and that she's really dedicated to. But early on in the film, I wasn't really fully invested in her character and didn't really care all that much. I wasn't really invested in her character. It didn't seem like she was giving it her all like she probably could have. And that was pulling me in and out of it a little bit. And yeah, there's not really a whole lot to say about this movie because it is really simplistic. The cinematography really isn't all that spectacular. Like I said, I do think it builds up pretty decent anxiety towards the end, and I liked the third act. I liked the ending of the film. I thought that it wrapped up pretty well, but there isn't enough here for me to really recommend you to go see it because it's very run-of-the-mill and it becomes very cliched and formulaic. Especially there's moments in the third act that follow so many beats of horror movies that came before it. It doesn't really step out of the norm in any way to make this original or unique or exciting. And it's unfortunate because, like I said, Bryan Bertino's The Dark and the Wicked is one of my favorite horror movies I've ever seen. I was really hopeful that this would follow along the line of that film, and it fell short, unfortunately. This is by no means one of the worst films A24 has put out, but I wouldn't recommend rushing to go see it because there's a lot of other horror movies out there that are well more worth your time. So have you seen The Monster? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was fine. I expected a lot more out of it, and it really just didn't do all that much for me. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.